Morning.
I'd like to call to order the Mayor Commission work session of February 3rd, 2020, and the time is now 10:02. Item number 1, Census 2020 presentation. Alex, you want to lead us into this discussion? Thank you.
Morning. For the record, Alex Hansen with the city's planning division. I just want to give you an overview, some background on the Census 2020, and also to talk about some of the city's efforts to make sure that every resident of the city is counted for the census. A little bit of background, the U.S. Constitution requires a decennial count of America's population. That's what the census is. Again, it's every 10 years. The results of the census are used for 3 primary purposes. The first one is for political representation, for redistricting purposes, both at the federal, at the state, as well as the local level. So the U.S. House of Representatives, State Senate, House Senate, and also at the city level. So in less than 2 years, we will be redrawing the city commission districts based on the results of the 2020 census. Many businesses make development and investment decisions based on the results of the census. Businesses go where the people are, where the population are. So again, businesses decide where to locate and where to put money based on the results of the census. And another critical purpose for the census is to allocate governmental funds, federal funds. So for the 2020 census, the estimate is that there's going to be about $675 billion that are going to be allocated from different federal programs based on the results of the census. This means roughly that for every person that completes the census, our community could be awarded up to $2,000 in federal funds per person per year for the next 10 years. So this is roughly $20,000 per person. So for every citizen or every resident of the city of West Palm Beach who does not respond to the census, our community, not only our city, but our community in general, could be losing $20,000 for every person. And again, this is funding for schools, for public transportation, roads, bridges, healthcare, different social programs, emergency response, and so forth. This time, there are going to be 3 ways to respond to the census. This is the first time. There's going to be a mail out that is supposed to arrive for every household around mid-March. That is going to include detailed information on how to respond to the census. And then by April 1st, 2020, every home should have received this invitation. There's going to be, as I said, 3 ways to respond to the 2020 census. The primary way or the preferred way by the census is online. But there's also an option to respond by either telephone or by mail. A few key milestones, as I mentioned, in March, next month, people can start responding online at the census website. Mail and phone are also options. The official census day is April 1st. After that, between May and July of this year, census takers are going to go door to door, knocking on homes, basically trying to encourage those homes that have not responded to the census to actually respond and do it. Then, before December 31st of this year, the Census Bureau is required to report the population count as well as the apportionment count to the president and to Congress. And then we, the public, should be receiving the results of the census sometime in early 2021. A few other key points that I want to highlight. The census is going to be asking questions regarding name, sex, age, date of birth, ethnicity, and the relationship of everybody in the household. It may also ask as to whether you own or rent a home. And again, the goal here is that everybody who's living and sleeping in your home most of the time should be counted. This includes both related family members as well as unrelated people. So a critical point, the census will not ask about citizenship or legal status. That has been a very contentious issue over the last year or two. And the information that is collected by the census is confidential. As far as the city's efforts from a communication and outreach standpoint, first I want to mention we have an internal committee composed of representatives from multiple city departments. We have met a few times to coordinate our efforts, some of the critical departments and critical agencies within the city. We have a website within the city's website dedicated to the census with a lot of information pertaining to the census, frequently asked questions, a number of different facts. Also, we have done we have a presence on the West Palm Beach TV, Facebook, Twitter. Again, this is an example of the Facebook web page for the city, or Facebook presence for the city with the census. As far as West Palm Beach TV, I would show some announcement with regards to that. Also, we have a bilingual flyer that is being mailed out with the water bills, and that is ongoing. And the next few weeks, these flyers are going to be going out. And again, the flyer is both in English and Spanish, and includes a lot of information with regards to the census. So every person who receives city water will be receiving this flyer within the next few weeks. A few other efforts. This is just a sample of some of the different meetings or events that where city staff has been present, or we have done presentations specifically regarding the census. Different community meetings, neighborhood meetings. There have been meetings with the Hispanic pastors, with the African American pastors, and different other groups. Something that is a little bit different from the census standpoint is for this census, the census created something called the low response score, which is a forecast or a prediction by the census on the non-response rates. So they basically saying, well, we, based on a lot of socioeconomic and demographic data, and based on previous response rates to other census efforts, we think that these are going to be some of the census tracts where there's going to be a lower response to the census. And the reason why they did this is so that both the census as well as the local communities can focus their efforts on those geographic areas. In this particular case, so this is a map of West Palm Beach. So some of the darker areas that you see are the census tracts. For example, some of this is north of Banyan, between Banyan and 25th Street. Some of these areas here is around Clear Lake. So these are the areas in dark blue, as well as some of the dark green, aqua color, where the census is forecasting, at least in West Palm Beach, where we may have a lower response rate. I just want to briefly go to this. So this is an interactive tool that the census has. And again, you can zoom in, and there's going to be some detailed information here. But so a lot of our efforts, a lot of the census efforts are being targeted in these geographic areas.
Alex, could you break that down by district and maybe see if you can alert the district, each of the commissioners, the district commissioner with some of those neighborhoods so they can be sensitive to that even going forward?
Correct. Yes, we can definitely do that.
That'd be helpful, commissioners?
We can definitely
Because we need
do
your
that.
help on this.
Sure.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Sorry. Another thing that is still ongoing from the census is their hiring. They're trying to hire hundreds of thousands of people to help. This is in the different communities. So you may see every week there's some representative of the census outside of the library recruiting residents or recruiting people from our community to work for the census. A lot of this would be jobs, these census takers that I mentioned, that are going to be knocking door to door starting in May. So the census is seeking for people from the community to actually be the ones knocking on those doors, encouraging people to answer to the census. It's better to have somebody that you know as opposed to a stranger being the one who's encouraging you to participate or to respond. There's a lot of information here We had a meeting with census staff, the mayor, and some of the city staff last week, and they're still actively trying to recruit people. So we have been sharing this with some of the different churches and some of the different community groups, saying, hey, please talk to the members of your congregation, the people in your communities, saying these jobs are still available. And the census, again, is actively seeking help. A few other city efforts that I want to highlight quickly. The Mandel Library is going to have computers and tablets available for the people to be able to respond online. Again, there's a big concern with the online efforts for the census is we have the digital divide, right? Not everybody has access to computers, online access, or they may not be comfortable doing it. So we're gonna have people at the library helping people to respond online. We also have some coordination between the city and the census on making sure that they count the homeless population. There's also, we're working on having materials and equipment available at different community centers, at the Vicar's House, similar to kind of the library efforts. We have been coordinating also with the school district. The school district has a very active outreach effort with regards to the census. And something that we have also been working on is the Complete Count Committee. We have a meeting last week. This is with a number of external stakeholders that these are kind of experts on the community, bigger agencies or bigger groups that we think can help us, again, making sure that every resident of the city is counted. Before I go to the questions, if you have any, I just want to mention the video. This is one of the city's efforts. Oops. Sorry, having volume issues.
Hello. As mayor of West Palm Beach, it is my duty and honor to make our city a vibrant community to live, work, and play for current and future generations. While I am honored to lead this initiative, I am excited to announce that you will soon have the chance to directly impact our city's future. The upcoming 2020 census will allow everyone the opportunity to make themselves count for the betterment of our community. For every person that completes the census, our community could be awarded up to $2,000 in federal funds per person per year until the next census. These funds are used for various factors that can improve your quality of life, including maintaining roadways, financial assistance programs, building new schools and improving existing ones, public transportation, and countless other aspects of daily living. You will soon receive a letter from the U.S. Census Bureau inviting you to participate in the 2020 census. You will have the option to complete the census online, via the phone, or by mail. If you don't have internet access, the computers at the Mandel Public Library are available for public use. I encourage you to take the census so that West Palm Beach may continue to flourish. When the time comes, I hope you take the time to fill out your document and encourage your family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, and anyone else to complete theirs as well. Thank you for making a difference for our city.
So that is it. As far as my presentation, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Commissioners, any questions? Commissioner Peduzzi?
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to make sure that we don't, and it sounds like you're well on the way to doing the good public outreach, but I want to make sure that we don't underestimate the importance of public outreach, especially in some of our neighborhoods where I'm concerned that there could be a chilling effect based upon our current immigration policy and housing policies. The fact that, there might be households that have too many people living, in single-family homes that aren't designed to hold as many people as might actually be living in these houses. It sounds like you're putting public notices in the water bills. it sounded like you're reaching out to church groups and things like that. I just want to make sure that in certain neighborhoods with populations that may be known for underreporting, that we figure out a way to bring them into the fold and make sure they're actually accurately reporting the number of people in those households.
And that's why, I mean, some of the meetings that I mentioned with the Hispanic pastors, with the African American pastors, those topics were discussed extensively. The pastors indicated, well, that a lot of their congregations have different concerns with regards to the census or answering any question to the government. So yeah, we have been we completely understand, and that's why we have been focusing on some of these communities, which happen to be also some of the low response rate communities that I mentioned in that map that the census had already identified. So our focus is on those communities. Armando, Fana, Wendy Morse, and the rest of the community engagement team have been targeting a lot of those groups as far as the outreach. But yeah, we clearly understand those are the groups, those are the areas where we need to do the most work.
And that's why I suggest it might be a good idea if we got to the individual district commissioners, that map showing the forecasted underreported neighborhoods, because commissioners, you may have contacts in those neighborhoods, you may know some of the leaders there, and so we'll be looking to you to help us to make entry into those neighborhoods moving forward. Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I appreciate it. And Mayor, I appreciate the point that you're bringing up, and that's what I wanted to comment about. I have been to numerous meetings where staff have been there. I want to say almost every community meeting I've been to, I've seen staff talking about the census. And one of the points that I think really resonated with some of the individuals that you might be thinking about, Commissioner Peduzzi, is that the sooner our residents respond to it, then they will not be bothered anymore after that. So if we can encourage them to fill it out online or via phone or via mail, then they won't get a knock on their door, which I think is what some concern is.
Another thing that I would like to reference is the census indicated to us at the meeting that we had last week, and they had also sent us some documents online. They are going to have information on a daily basis showing which are the census tracts and census block groups, the areas where people are responding. So this is going to be at least for the online response. So they'll know how many households have responded within a certain geographic area on every day. So that's why also their efforts are going to be focused on those areas where the response rate is low. So it's kind of a day-to-day. So they'll be communicating that information to us. We're going to have access to it. Again, it's not a block-by-block basis, but it's a larger area. And then we can also, again, focus our efforts as the census is on their way to reach out to those areas of the city.
Commissioner Shove.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the presentation. I want to also say thank you to staff. I've been at several meetings where you've been out in the community. My question is, how as we as commissioners, how can we help you? Do you want to partner with not-for-profits that will help to get the message out? You know, what can we do? Because I think it's great to be at community meetings. We're reaching out to a population that's already engaged in their neighborhood. We need to reach that population that's not engaged in their neighborhood. So how can we assist you in those efforts?
Good morning, Armando, Fana. Yeah, I think definitely the nonprofit groups, you know, historically the Hispanic community that is west of Dixie in the South End has had a low response rate, so we've reached out to Latin Quarters and other organizations, the pastors and so forth, to help with that population. RISE has been helping a little bit on outreach with the North End. So yeah, I think those nonprofits groups, particularly groups like RISE and Latin Quarters that are doing a lot of door-to-door work, will be important going forward. So whatever contacts you have with those neighborhood not neighborhood associations, but neighborhood groups and organizations that target the neighborhoods that are low responses will be key. And I know Kevin Jones as well with his organizations has been working on getting the message out on the census.
Thank you.
Commissioner Rouse.
Yeah, thank you. What, Armando, have you guys done for the Haitian Creole speaking community?
Actually had a discussion on that the other day. We're trying to get, I don't remember the discussion, I know we talked about getting some things translated in Creole.
And also, we don't have some of the capability to translate some of the materials, but the census has already indicated that they have materials that we can use that are in Creole. So we want to use a lot of the census materials. They have information in 14 different languages that where the census says, please use all of this in Creole as part of our outreach efforts.
But I think that'd be helpful if you know organizations that do outreach to the Haitian Creole community, then we can get them the information.
All right.
Yeah, Commissioner Baduzzi?
Have we considered doing any social media outreach, having the mayor do something just like he did there, but maybe targeting those communities that may be on social media but may still be hesitant to accurately report for the census, because you can set parameters of even what neighborhoods and zip codes you can target on social media.
Well, I mentioned Twitter, Facebook, and Kathleen Walter and Amanda Paez have been working on a lot of those efforts. I know that there's also a Spanish-speaking video that similar to the one that the mayor did that is actually going to be happening pretty soon. And again, a lot of that can be shared not only through West Palm Beach TV or YouTube, but Facebook and other social media efforts.
Any other questions? Alex, thank you so much for a very thorough presentation. And again, commissioners, it's incumbent that we continue to get the word out there. Thank you. Okay. Vision Zero update. Scott, Lynn?
Yes, I was going to introduce Wen Dang, as you all know, as well as Tara Applebaum, who's our contractor, is here today. And I just wanted to congratulate both of them because our Vision Zero program is really starting to garner state and national recognition, and we've got some good statistical results that we think you'll be excited about. As part of this program, I also wanted to go over, at a commission meeting, I committed in December to come back to you all with a recommendation for how we think the program should be structured in the future. We are creating a part-time job description, 30-hour per week job description. We think that is the smart way to go on this. So we'll be back to you all with a recommendation on that, as well as a transition plan to get to bring that in-house. So that's another thing. And then finally, when they're finished, I'd like to give an update on Australia, because I know that is an issue that's on everyone's mind. And it's an example from Vision Zero. I think it's a great example of what we could do to design in a smart way the new road improvements that the county is undertaking on that particular road in order to incorporate Vision Zero principles. So thank you. Wen.
Hi, good morning. I do want to reiterate that Vision Zero is a strategy to eliminate all traffic crashes and fatalities within our roadway network. And with that, we had an amazing last weekend. We had an amazing event that Tara helped organize. We gave out hundreds of free helmets and with lots of participation from our community. And it's really exciting every time I work one of these events to see how people are so excited to really just get to know what is our goal and why are we doing this. So I do want to recap that we are officially part of the Vision Zero network, officially one of 4 cities in the state of Florida. And with that, our task force is probably the largest out of the state of Florida in general, with over 50 members, with Mayor James as leading this effort. This past year, in 2019, we really focused on employee education, and I have to credit our risk department and giving employee orientation by reiterating the fact that we have to focus on safety internally first as we are communicating to the external stakeholders. We held over 40 events in 2019. It's really exciting. This is an event right here at the intersection of at the fire station, 3 up in North Broadway. It was really exciting because it's one of the first events that I participated with zero parking issues, because this is a walkable community, and they came, and we gave out over 500 helmets that day also. With that, Tara's been really focused on education, and especially high school, and particular high school students, because this is the most vulnerable group. As we know that our data between 15 to 19, these are the kids that is commonly hurt within our roadway network. Of course, we can't forget 880s. We focus our senior drivers as we want to outreach to them. Your mobility are not limited, and this is how we can be safe within our roadway network. Last year, we received $48,000 in the High Visibility Enforcement Grant that focused more on our target corridors. Our target corridors are Okeechobee West, 45th Street, and of course North Broadway. These are the 3 sections of roadway in the city of West Palm Beach that is most dangerous for pedestrian and bicyclists. And there are going to be some results at the end of this presentation on how we are able to accomplish that. We are pursuing additional grant this year. We're expecting a similar amount as we are targeting our grants. So this year we're really focused on speed management. And with speed management is, we know that that's the focus of providing safety. I've initiated a conversation with the fire department, and we're going to do a pilot study on how will speed humps really give us a safe network, and in addition, still maintain the level of service as we are providing to our community with data. So a couple of examples that we've done this past year, this is South Olive itself. It borders the South Olive Elementary School. It's a quick build. When we think of quick build, staff design it internally, and we look at providing a safe network as far as providing crosswalks so people can cross to go to the school. But the most exciting part of it is that after we finish construction, we get to measure, and we see that there is a speed reduction already. Another project that we did last year, and we were able to measure, and this is probably the most exciting piece of it, because this is one of the most important intersection that I think we've done in the city. This is a Dutch-style protected roundabout intersection. It's probably the first one that was done in the state of Florida, but we saw that the 85th percentile, the speed reduction, is incredible at this location. And of course, we get to test our ZCLA separators along with AIPP as making this a focal point of the villages itself. We have been working with developers. Every time they come in and build a project, we look at how can we provide safe facilities. This project is, actually, this is Okeechobee. This is the first protected bike lanes on a state highway system within our downtown area. We target Okeechobee because this is the highest crash corridor in our downtown, and 25% of all crashes in downtown is actually on Okeechobee itself. This is really exciting because this is going to get featured at the Safe Street Summit, and we're excited for that. This past year, and this is probably a conversation that we had several years, like Okeechobee and Rosemary being so dark. Well, we finished the project, and here it is. It's thank you. It was a challenging project, but we were able to complete it. And then, of course, this is, we focus more on school and providing safe routes to school. We participated in Walk to School Day and look at how do we upgrade all 31 of our school zones within the city. We've had 5 completed already and another 8 under contract. Everything has been designed. We're only focused on construction this year. And with, our pedestrian program, because it's also very important, and as we're talking about how do we connect people into our schools and our community services, 41st Street is a very good example, because at the end of the street is the Boys and Girls Club. As you can see, there's no sidewalk on the other side of the road, and we're looking at how do we provide connected links of sidewalks and really provide a safe program for speed management on this street. So last year, we spent quite a bit of money on PR and marketing, and I think that's part of our success is communication. And with this program, we had reached over 3.4 million people based on our the numbers that our consultants has provided for us. And excuse me. And with that investment, I think there's part of it is part of our success because our West Palm Beach Police Department has released results at the end of 2019, and I'm very excited to say that we are down. As if you look at these numbers, the fatal crashes have gone down by 2, which gives us a 33% net. But we still have, even though our numbers are down, I want to focus on the ped bike crashes because these are the most vulnerable user of our roadway network. So we're going to continue to get that number to 0, and that is the goal of Vision Zero itself. The other numbers that we received is actually from the healthcare district, and also those numbers are of severity of people who are in these crashes that gets transferred to St. Mary's Hospital, and their numbers have also, there is also a decline. But again, put focus on the motor vehicle versus pedestrian number. Even though we're down from 39 to 32, it's still 32 that is, we're in this situation. So for 2020, and this is an exciting project for me personally, because I saw this as an inspiration image last year, and I say, how awesome is this? It's a little park for little kids to learn about road signs, road safeties before you take your driver's education classes when you're a teenager. So how great would it be to introduce children, elementary school's children, to this type of facilities? So I got so excited. I actually personally visit Copenhagen itself and visit a park and really sit there and enjoy how these kids traverse through this course itself. So we looked at a location, and this project evolved within the past 2 weeks, just to let everybody know, because we presented at the Palm Beach TPA, and the school board was so excited that we developed this. So ultimately, Palmetto Elementary School in the South area, we do have a project that the Palm Beach TPA awarded us on Parker Avenue, and as we're developing that, we saw that the school at this location is separated by an intersection, and here are some opportunities for us to improve safety at that location. And so I just wanted to show you guys that this is an image of the elementary school and that intersection. We had met with the neighborhood already as far as concept on Parker Avenue with our grant project, and we are looking at updating this intersection along with providing a multi-use path, some kind of access to and from the school itself. But when we were in discussion with the school district, they have offered for us to dream big and make something exciting out of that park, that image that I showed you earlier, within school property. I just met with the COO and the school board on Thursday of last week and presented them with this concept. And it's just really exciting because this has never been done before. And one of the things I asked for, can we program this and bring in other students and really develop an education program with the school itself, as this is, we're trying to provide road safety. They're very exciting. They're fully on board. And so then, this is an opportunity to really get a reaction for everybody in this group. The other thing that was asked of me is dream big, but I'm an engineer, I dream realistic, but I also dream big. And what if it can be turned into something more flourish with signalized intersections and roundabouts and one-way streets and crosswalks. These are things that's within the city. These are all of the city streets, but on a smaller network. And with that, it's really a vision for me personally for 2020, and see how can we develop this vision into something that's really important to the community.
How is this being funded?
This project right now is not funded. We do have a little bit of safety dollars that we're using. Up to this point, all the efforts that's been made is from city staff, and we're designing this. We're thinking that if we're thinking realistic, and of course, if we're thinking realistic, this project is not going to exceed $500,000. That's from our estimates. We are. The next thing that we would do is really apply for grants with the Palm Beach TPA, because I did present this at the Palm Beach TPA. The other thing is I've asked, boldly asked the school district to participate with us. And then I think during a conversation I had with FP&L, because last week on Friday, I showed them this concept, and maybe that's an opportunity for us to pursue. Right now, it's not a capital project, it's only in planning, and as we like the concept and we want to develop it further, it will be in the next year capital plan.
Okay, very good. I like the dream big aspect of it. Any questions? Commissioner Schoaf, and then Madam President.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. I think it's definitely a good thing to get our young people thinking early about, our roadways and safety, et cetera. I like the idea of this park, and I hope that there's something successful that maybe we can locate something like this along some of the corridors that we're focused on, like the Broadway corridor of 45th Street, to be in those same neighborhoods that we're focusing on. I understand this is just down from the Okeechobee corridor that we're working on as well. Hopefully there's some successes here, and we can duplicate those efforts along the same Vision Zero corridors as well. Thank you.
Thank you. When I first looked at this, I was thinking of, let's see if we can co-locate it in some of our existing park features already. This was just a perfect opportunity, and I think it can be easily replicated if we're interested.
Great. Madam President.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Wynn. Appreciate the presentation. And, this reminds me, the focus on young kids and educating students. I love the high school students as well as our seniors as well. But this reminds me of when I was in grade school. I remember they're really trying to educate young people on, even before we were driving, about the disasters of drinking and driving. And I'll never forget, my mom had a can of Diet Coke, and she was drinking that, and I freaked out on her, and I said, Mom, you're not supposed to drink and drive, because I didn't quite fully understand that soda was okay, well, to drink and drive. But what I'm trying to say here is that even though it might be a decade before some of these students might be driving, I think that they are advocates to their parents, and I think that that's really important. I'm curious if we do any outreach to Uber or Lyft drivers. Whenever I do ask for an Uber or a Lyft, I have to say that those are some of the scariest times that I am in a vehicle, and I'm constantly asking them to slow down. And so I don't know if we have statistics on if some of the crashes, are because we have people who maybe aren't, familiar with our streets, driving on our streets. So that's one area. The other thing I have noticed lately from attending TPA workshops, and I noticed in your presentation, that you're using the term crash versus accident. And I am very keenly aware of the difference of that now, and I'm wondering if you could just take a moment to talk about the difference in those two terms.
Sure, absolutely. Crashes are preventable, and they're preventable with good road design. And I think that's one of the terms that I've trained myself to always focus on, that when there's an accident on the road, and we call it an accident, so there's nobody to blame but ourselves, right? But when we talk about traffic crashes, we can make that change, and we can, with the 3 E's, educate, enforcement, and really the most important piece of it is engineer a better and safer road. And so that's why it's a simple and quick answer is crashes are preventable.
Right, so oftentimes we say accident just because that's our typical term, but in fact, it's a crash because it was something that was preventable, someone rolling through a stop sign, not stopping, and have hit someone. My last point in question is about the focus areas. I attend a lot of neighborhood association meetings, and they're constantly saying, well, whatever issue they might be bringing up, they're using the Vision Zero methodology as an example to say, well, we should have better lighting or better traffic calming to address speeding issues. And doesn't this represent what Vision Zero is all about? So I noticed that you mentioned the 3 areas that are our focus areas. Will that be expanding, or how are we, relating this to the rest of the city? And is there representation on that task force from each of our neighborhood associations?
So the focus area is the data that the police department released to us. These are the area with the highest crashes, and so it becomes a number. The highest doesn't even though we have side streets that are cut through streets, they're still as important to our entire network. One of the things that we really focus on as far as for engineering is really our census data. Kind of sideline into that is it's very important because we know that low walkable area are generally low income area, and that is one of our focus area. The other thing that we look at is our primary collector roads. These are Parker, Lake Avenue, Olive. These are the primary spine of our roadway network that we connect people. And typically we see that those are speeding. There's a lot of speeding on those roads. So we try to tackle those first, and then we also look at our school and our community services. Our school, I'll give you a good example, is Coniston Middle School doesn't have a lot of school buses for good reasons, because the majority of the kids that goes there walk and bike to school. So we focus right now on speed management. And that is a strategy that has proven effective, as you can see with some of our results, and that's how we focus as far as which neighborhood to tackle first.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Commissioner Schultz.
Thank you, and forgive me if I'm jumping ahead here, because I know you're going to do an Australian update too, and not having the data in front of me, what you've described is a lot of what happens on Australian as well. We have excessive speeding. We've had a lot of crashes, even crashes into homes. There's, a middle school there, so a lot of walkable neighborhoods too. Just curious, in the data and statistics, is there room, I guess this would be my lobbying effort, to include Australian in our Vision Zero policy, in that it qualifies under the same kind of statistics that you've already outlined? So is there a reason because of ownership of roads, or is there something else that I'm not aware of?
Yeah, it's not ownership of roads. We treat every project that comes into us as important as any of these high areas. Australian, which Scott's going to talk about next, as you can see that it is owned by the county. They are going through a major design effort. It's part of our responsibility to provide a safer design speed for that road. And what that means is shorter sight distance or shorter stopping sight distance with the curves along the road. In addition to that, is there's got to be a lot of crosswalks along Australian, and these are some of the efforts that we're making comments on the county plan to ensure that there's safety. But I think one thing that if there's a takeaway, the most important thing is what is the design speed that we're targeting for. So we're designing for 30 miles per hour. There are certain parameters that, as engineers, that they're forced to do, right? Tighter horizontal curves, sight distance are shorter, median width are smaller. These are all the elements that comes into an engineering design that will provide a safer, network. And Scott's gonna talk about it.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Wen? Again, thank you. Very fine presentation. And Scott, what can you tell us about Australia?
Yes, before I get started, I just realized I failed to mention two important constituents here that I need to thank. Number one is our internal and communications department, because they've done an outstanding job, but also the police as well, too. So both of them, internal, and I don't have time to mention all the external stakeholders. Wen showed a lot of them. But in regard to Australian, because I think this is a perfect example of how we can work to make our streets safer. So I'm not going to go into all the history of Australian, But 5 years ago, we worked with the county to try to come up with a safer cross-section. When the bond referendum went out, the penny sales tax, referendum went out, we met with the county representing a number of citizens who were very active. Ms. Harrison is a perfect example of really working with us to try to make sure that we get the right outcomes on this road. So anyway, we worked with the citizens and we met with the county, and the county agreed to take a look at what cross-section they were proposing to provide as part of the penny sales tax. And that was basically bike lanes, and not really changing the sidewalks along there, but putting bike lanes on the road, which would be just striped bike lanes as part of the lane of traffic. And we know that just from design standards that really is probably not the safest way for people to be able to utilize bicycles along that corridor. So we met with them, and the county was receptive, which we're very thankful for. You know, we've worked with them extensively. So they came up with a different cross-section. They actually hired a consulting firm in order to make that roadway safer. And also, incidentally, you know, we have some very bright people that live along there that understand how do you make a road safe. So we have a real active constituency along there. So we asked the county to do separate bike lanes, and if necessary, because of a lack of space, that you could do a combined pathway with a bicycle track as well as a sidewalk combined. And they ended up agreeing to do that. Okay, so the county, so we're really thankful for that. However, now that we're involved with Vision Zero, we've asked them to even take a step further. So we're in active discussions with them, and we're hoping that we can end up convincing them to take the next step. And I'm going to pass this out so you'll see our ask of them, and so you'll have this something to take with you. But what we're asking for them to do is be able to create a buffer area where you can plant trees along Australian. And this would provide shade for pedestrians and bicyclists, but it also, even more importantly, will provide a barrier for them from the active traffic. And so we really feel like this is really, really important to do that. So we're asking them to slightly reconfigure their cross-section to be able to achieve that. We really feel it's important. We also know that if you do that, that it actually creates friction. So people will slow down because if there's trees along the edge of the roadway, that they'll actually slow down. So it'll accomplish two purposes. So we're hoping, we're asking for a meeting. Their initial reaction was, well, we don't really want to change what we've already designed, but we're asked for another meeting to sit down with them to go further and explain our position further. So hopefully we'll be able to reach an agreement on that. And we're just really excited, and we do appreciate the county working with us. It's just really important for safety for them to be able to work with us on this and for the good of the neighborhood.
So Scott, you sent this letter in September
Yes.
Of last year. We haven't received a response?
Yes, we got a response where they said that they were uncomfortable making changes to the design because of some of the standards that they had, longstanding standards that they had. So we asked them for another meeting, Mayor, because their standards, I believe, now with DOT has made some changes to the standards throughout the state, and that their standards could be modified to meet the new DOT standards. And so we would be able to achieve what we asked for within DOT guidelines. And so, you know, that's kind of the overall standard that most municipalities and county governments utilize. So we want to be able to meet with them one more time if possible and try to see if we could end up creating space to be able to plant trees along there, which again would buffer. And not just that, but we also would like to expand the multi-use pathway from 10 feet to 12 feet wide so that we would have, make sure we have clearance between pedestrians and bicyclists that would be sharing the pathway.
All right, so have they agree to another meeting, or were you out there?
Yes. Kevin met with them last week. We asked be able to set a meeting.
Okay.
So I think I'm going to try to initiate that meeting. It was really unclear at this point who would initiate the meeting. I would like to, I'm going to take the initiative and see if we can't get with them. I think this is really important that, this is something we learned through Vision Zero, that this is, we can be successful with this to slow down traffic and protect pedestrians and bicyclists.
All right, Ms. Johnson, if you could put that on our list when we have our periodic meetings with the county, just as follow-up, please. Sure will. Any other questions for, Commissioner Schoaf?
Thank you, Scott, and thank you to Mayor for putting that on the priority list. I think this engineering is really important in the long run. I guess I would just ask too that as we're working on the engineering, if we could make sure we focus on the enforcement piece to try to keep things safe there in the meantime. I want to again really highlight thank you to staff for working with the county, working with the neighborhoods. I know we have some really active and engaged neighborhoods along there. And, I'm hopeful that this will be a good step forward into making it a much safer corridor. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schoaf, for that. I'm sure I've gotten the same emails that you all have been getting, and I have emphasized to our police that we try to beef up speed enforcement along that corridor, and some others in the city, but certainly on Australia. Commissioner Riles.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have one question. Has anyone put any consideration, I hear that you're talking about putting in trees, but has anyone made any or done any study to determine whether or not the trees would affect the historic flooding on Australia?
Well, and that's a separate issue. Of course, it goes without saying, when this project was originally conceived, as part of the penny sales tax, one of the commitments the county made, which again we really appreciate, is that they would fix the drainage as they're redoing the street. That's critical. The first phase of that, unfortunately, has been delayed, which is at Palm Beach Lakes in Australia, because they ran into some contaminated soil there. However, there are two other sections that flood regularly along that corridor. So we need to make sure they're going to fix that, and they've indicated to us that they will fix the drainage as they're actually doing the redo of the street. So, and we do appreciate the counties. I mean, I don't want to underestimate the fact that they are really have stepped up in that regard. So there's really just minor differences now between the county and the city in regard to this rebuild of this road. So.
Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation on this. This is something we've heard a lot about, so appreciate it being moved forward. My question was about the transparency of where we are on this project. Is this included on the CIP project list on our website?
No, it's not, because it's a county project. However, city will be participating at some point because we have agreed to provide the lighting upgrades along this corridor. We really think that the county should provide the trees because ultimately this new cross-section is less expensive than what was originally was provided in the penny sales tax project. However, that's always negotiable in regard to the trees as well. So at some point we're going to have to fund, once it's arrived at, the upgrade to the lighting and perhaps some landscaping participation. So we don't have it currently on there because it's really not our project. So.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Again, thank you both Scott and Wynn for very fine presentations, and keep us posted. Okay, item 3, Mr. Rugg, you're going to talk to us about the draft economic development plan.
I am. Good morning, Mayor, City Commissioners. Chris Rugg, Director of Economic Development for the City of West Palm Beach. with me one moment. So yes, late last week, I did email out the final draft of the plan. I do want to make one little note on that. There are still some just some general formatting and grammatical things that I am cleaning up, but for the most part, the content has been established. So this plan has been in the works now for the better part of I guess a couple of years now, if you take into account the economic development study that occurred in 2018. So today, I'm just going to do a quick overview of how we got to this point. I'll go over the general goals and framework of the plan. There's a ton of information inside of it, so I'm not going to go through every single detail, but sort of give a general overview. Talk about what's happened to date as it relates to outreach and folks giving me feedback on the overall plan, and then ultimately, if you have any other questions, and I will ask for some direction at the conclusion of the presentation. But I do want to first start out. Dennis and Raphael are in the audience. I do want to thank them and the rest of the steering committee that helped with this plan. It was the Chamber of Commerce, Kelly Smallridge from the BDB, Michelle Jacob from Economic Council, the CRA, and Raphael from the DEA helped steer and sort of guide the formation of this plan. So I do want to take a moment to thank them for their help. So just to go back in time a little bit, to talk a little bit about the history. So in 2018, we completed the economic development plan for the city. And then the fall of 2018 is when we kicked off the actual planning based on the data that we had received. And that started with a lot of business leaders from around the city meeting in this room to discuss what they thought or what they would like to see as for priorities for economic development for the city. And that kicked off a series of meetings with individual businesses, groups. We did a survey in the winter of 2019 and just continued to collect data till we got to a point where we had enough information that we could actually start formulating the plan. And then during the spring, actually started drafting the overall plan. But just to sort of highlight what was the main focus of the business community and the plan, of the survey, the plan really takes its cues from three sources. One is the economic development study that occurred in 2018. Second is the business community's thoughts and input based on that study. And lastly, the city's strategic plan. And what we saw out of the data, and the business community acknowledged it, is that we are creating jobs faster than we can fill them, which is great news. We have tremendous job growth, and this is not new. This has been continuing. However, the bad news is that we do have this issue of this 17% poverty rate, which has been well documented. But the business community said, well, we have job growth, we have a poverty rate. Why don't we just really focus on generating great talent that we can then fill those jobs with and pull those folks out of poverty and make that a key cornerstone for the economic development plan, and that's what we did. So with that, we developed an overall vision and mission for the economic development plan based on 5 goals, and I'll get into those goals in a second. And underneath each one of those are actual activities and projects. And then, of course, those will be measured by consistently gathering data, some of which will need to be created, some of which we have on hand, so that we can understand the actual effectiveness of our economic development purposes. I do want to take a moment and do mention that resoundingly what I've heard in the travels of outreach for this plan was not to recreate the wheel. So using existing programs, using existing resources that are currently available to the city, whether that's plans from sustainability or Vision Zero, or our arts master plan, our infrastructure and capital improvement program, whatever it is, all of those things were essentially built into this overall plan to really drive home that fact of we're not going to recreate the wheel. And even more so looking at outside folks like our local universities to use their programs as well, whether it's the school district, FAU, Palm Beach Atlantic University, whoever it may be. Inside the plan, there are actually a couple of projects, sort of plans within a plan. And this was an idea that came from our consultant that helped with this, Avalanche Consulting. That was Tony DeLisi that I showed you earlier presenting the information. And they said, look, in order to really move the dial on some of your goals, you should have sort of priority projects. And so the two that sort of bubbled up out of the discussions and everything that I had mentioned was A, revitalizing the north end, and that's actually under goal number 3, which is infrastructure. And then goal number 5, entrepreneurship and innovation, and that's the development of the Jefferson Terminal District. So this map on the left was something that the planning department, Rachel Falcone and I'm going to forget his name. Caroline did help a little bit, but I was thinking the gentleman from RISE.
Craig Glover?
Craig Glover, thank you. Sort of helped develop this asset map that was based on something that we actually did for the Jefferson Terminal District when we're doing their master planning, which Heather Danforth is helping with. But both two really great projects that are currently underway. And I'll actually mention this at the end, that I have, even though this plan has not been formally adopted, have sort of moved to implement a lot of the details and projects that are outlined in the plan. But ultimately, we have 5 goals that are inside this plan. So talent, business climate, marketing, infrastructure, quality of place, and entrepreneurship and innovation. And underneath each of those are specific strategies, and then under those strategies are activities. So I'm not going to get into each and every one of them because, as I mentioned, there is a lot of information. But I did send out sort of the spreadsheet that lays out those details in priority order over a time frame. And that was actually a great suggestion by Rick Green to go ahead and put those things in order so that we can actually go back and tie each year from a budgetary standpoint what we need to fund and what activities we're going to prioritize each year and year. We measure that with the data, we'll understand if we're being effective or not. So this is just an example of what one of those strategies looks like, and underneath it, what the activity is. So just under talent, which is goal number 1, and I do want to take a moment to say the goals are in priority order. I mean, they're all important, but if we had to say, we're just forced to make a decision, they are in priority order, starting with that talent, and 5th being that entrepreneurship. And that's just because that talent issue is just such an important aspect for all businesses and for our community that the business, and that actually came from the businesses when we were talking about it, that really does need to be priority 1 moving forward. So under that goal 1.3, you'll see it in the spreadsheet, developing that equitable opportunities for all through education and job opportunities. You'll see how we start actually moving the dial on some of the activities that we plan to implement. And same thing for goal number 5. Even though that's misnumbered, it says 4.2. It should say 5.2. And then after each goal does have a set of matrix that you'll see is tied to it. And as an example, measuring school attendance rates does correspond to actually making sure that folks are showing up for school and how the city can help with that. And this shows you all of the different data sets that I plan to collect, because you can't just look at one single data source and understand if you're being effective with economic development. You probably need to look at a series of data sources depending on the goal that you're looking to achieve. So
Chris.
timeline. Oh, yes,
Question.
Commissioner.
Just a quick question on that last slide. It says goal 1.1.6, and
Yes.
it's attendance, but I don't see that in the plan.
So that's the corresponding goal is actually the tactic. So if you look underneath the
Okay.
spreadsheet, you'll see 1.1, and then the 6th activity under 1.1 will be include Palm Beach County District as a partner to help drive attendance after primary school hours.
Okay, awesome, thank you.
So to date, when we initially drafted the plan, we reached out to you all and also circulated around the city staff. And since that time, I've been on the street and out in the community collecting additional feedback on the overall plan. And this is actually the first step in formal adoption of the plan that begins this year. So these are the groups that I have met with, and quite a bit of feedback that I've gotten from all of these different individuals and businesses. So this was the most efficient way to actually get to every interested business group out into the community. There are some still outstanding. Have reached out to them several times, but just in the series of getting the plan moving, I'll continue to reach out to them. But for the most part, have gotten quite a bit of feedback and have just been compiling it. This is just a sample of a lot of the sticky notes as we were altering the plan as it was moving forward. But there's quite a bit of information that came from all of these groups to influence and make the plan better. And as I mentioned, we have started implementing a series of items. I am happy to say this picture on the right here of this young lady actually making vegan Philly cheesesteak. That is Dina's Vegan Deli, who has opened at 314 Clematis Street as a pop-up, which is the 12 for 12 project, and started this weekend. I'm very excited to say. And they were very happy with the soft opening that was kicked off, and we are planning more activities moving forward. Both Dina and Amy from Grow, who is selling these little small succulent plants, both popped up this weekend, and that will continue as the project continues to evolve. The other businesses are preparing to open up, I believe, this weekend. So that continues to be a great project that the Knight Foundation has helped us with moving forward, and that is actually in the plan. Down below...
Chris, before you move off of that,
Yes.
is there going to be some kind of formal grand opening, ribbon cutting or something, just to let the community know these are...
Yes, Mayor. Well, part of the plan is once we get all the kinks worked out, make sure that they're comfortable with everything, the plan will be to actually have some type of large event.
Okay.
Where we do a ribbon cutting, and there's also a marketing and promotion plan.
Good.
That will be included to make sure that everybody understands that these businesses are up and running and that they can come and visit them.
Excellent, thank you.
And down below, our community partnership schools, this is just ties straight into our talent initiative. That's Principal Daniels and Eileen Silber with some of the students from Northmore Elementary. That's been a successful program and just continues to build with volunteers from the community to help with those literacy activities and help build the talent in the city. And then, as I mentioned, just a slew of other things that are tied to the economic development plan moving forward. So next steps, obviously this is step one, just to make sure that there isn't any additional feedback that you all want to share with me. I would like to get this plan up on the city's website to garner just one last sort of larger release to the community to allow them to provide additional feedback. Then I will formally prepare it with administration to make sure that everything's comfortable to bring it forward at a future commission meeting. That I'll determine with them. So with that, just a simple request for direction on this plan because I do think it's good and it's sort of ready for prime time. Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, Commissioners.
Okay, thank you. My thinking is that let's go full steam ahead and move it toward finalization, adoption by the commission, get it on the website, and let it govern our behavior going forward. Commissioners? Commissioner Schoaf.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor, for your leadership on this, and Chris for your hard work, and our community partners as well. There's a lot that's gone into this, and as the district commissioner for District 1, very, very excited to see the North End be a big part of this. I would ask for just a small tweak to make sure that we include Coleman Park, because the Tamron corridor is extremely important to continue down through into those areas, and I don't think that they're always included in the RISE area asset mapping specifically, but really, really extremely important to the success of the entire North End as well. So if we could have that included as well, I think you've done a great job, robust look at all the assets in the city, you know, from one end to the other. So happy to move forward with this as well. Thanks.
Any other, Madam President?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chris. Appreciate the presentation. And, I was excited to see this progress over the last few years, from the study to now this report, and hearing, I was excited to see that talent was listed first in priority order, and to hear that the business community saw that as a great need as well. So just wanted to say thank you, and I'm very supportive of this.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay. Anyone else? If not, so I think does that give you the direction you need?
Yes, I'll work with city administration
Sure.
to get it on the next available agenda.
There was one, and I was curious to hear what the business community response was. One of the slides you show, I think it was 75% of the new jobs are coming from outside of the city. Am I recalling that correctly? What was that statistic?
75% of the new jobs are coming from,
Are being filled by people outside
are you
of-
talking about commutes? As far as where the workers are coming from?
Yes.
Okay, yes. So the labor shed, to go back up to what the mayor had mentioned, the labor shed.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, 75% of jobs filled by non-residents.
Correct. So
Is that
that's.
non-residents of the city?
That is correct. So we have a tremendous amount of folks that commute into the city on a daily basis. And those are just coming from surrounding municipalities in the city. And it is a great way to, essentially capture future residents if they're working here. Chances are they may want to live closer to work, so creating more housing opportunities and other ways for them to, and just improving the overall quality of life, I think, is a great way to sort of capture some of those folks that may like to live closer to where they work. But a labor shed of 680,000 actually includes most of Palm Beach County and actually dips into northern Broward.
Okay, see, I saw that as a different, I read that differently because to me, it shows the opportunity to get more of our residents employed. So
The other, a good portion of our residents actually live in the city and then commute out as well. So it's kind of, but yes.
do we have that metric somewhere? That would be interesting.
In the actual economic development study, which is on the website, it does have, it breaks down the labor shed and how people are moving back and forth between the city from an employment
Can you
perspective.
share that with me, please? Just break that out and share that with me, please.
Yeah, you want it right now?
No.
Okay, yes, Mayor.
Yeah, Madam President.
Thank you. I was also going to comment on this spreadsheet that you created as well. I think this is extremely helpful as we, move forward in budgeting process to see what the plans are for the priorities. So thank you for doing this.
The credit really goes to Rick Green. I mean, he wanted to make that a priority for the plan, which I think has been a great tool for folks understanding where we need to focus our efforts.
And let me build upon where I was going with that, because we have this disconnect between the employment rate, the low employment rate in our city, and obviously the relatively high poverty rate, and so clearly people have jobs, but perhaps they aren't paying enough money or whatever. So it would be nice to know what jobs they have, and for our residents, the jobs they have are outside of our city, and therefore maybe they aren't high paying enough. So we need to get more. And what are those jobs? What industries? And I know it's in the report somewhere, but what do we need to do to keep them employed in our city with jobs that will pull them out of poverty? And I know that's why that was the number one. The talent pool was the number one priority. But I just want to, drill down into the particular strategies. I know we got NCAT and stuff like that, but just so you and I can have an offline discussion about that.
Absolutely.
Anything else? Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Wonderful report. I look forward to having more information come out of that. I don't have anything under Mayor's Matters. I did, but I forgot what it was going to be. Yes, Commissioner Shove.
Thank you, Mayor. I was wondering, we've had some traffic congestion over the weekend with road closures, and I thought if someone from staff could either give an update or point residents towards a place where they could learn more about traffic closures to try to alleviate some of that.
Ms. Johnson, do you know anybody who could speak to us about traffic and the current street closures, et cetera? Yeah.
Armando Fana, I can update a little bit. I know that the 500 block is closed on the weekends through mid-April, I believe, beginning at 4 p.m. on Fridays and ending Sunday evenings. So that's going to be ongoing on the weekends. Obviously, there's a lot of events that happen on the weekends as well this time of year. We have marathons and of course, the green market, so that causes significant problems with road closures. Last couple weeks, we had a very small portion of Dixie here, just to the south of Clematis, that has been shut down. As I understand, that project is scheduled to be completed at the end of this week. So that should help, because that was causing a lot of tie-ups here in this area of Clematis. There is a place you can go to the website, and I'll send it out to all the commissioners, where you can get updates on the road closures. Having said all that, I reached out to my colleagues this week to have a meeting to have a little better coordination, because there's a lot of different departments that are involved in road closures, including parking, engineering, community events, and it could be done better. Let's just put it that way.
Thank you.
Yes.
Just a follow-up to that. So we're having a lot of road closures or construction and good things going on in the city, great events like the 500 block of Clematis, but at the same time, we're still having daily regular activities of deliveries and Uber drivers who stop in the middle of the street, Amazon Prime deliveries that stop in the middle of the street. And I'm just wondering if we're also either beefing up or taking a look at our policies as it relates to enforcing our rules that we do have, or do we need to take a look at our rules that we have on this? Because those things on their own create challenges, but now we add in extra traffic and extra road closures, and it just compounds it even more.
Yeah, and I'll let Scott take that, but that is one of the reasons that we're meeting this week, is to go over all those issues in general.
Yeah.
And that's why we at some point, we need to bring before this body and adopt a more formal parking plan, master parking plan, because that's really the best way that we're going to address the demand. We've got the curbside demand, which is a big issue. We need to take rather than dealing with it on a piecemeal effort, we've got to deal with it in a more comprehensive effort, which is what the parking master plan was all about. But go ahead, Scott.
Yeah, well, thank you, because you really answered it. Our parking policies will have a huge impact on this, which, we'll be bringing before the commission. But beyond that, as the mayor stated, we're going to be coming up with more effective regulations in regard to what they call curbside management. And this has to do with drop-off, whether it be Uber, Lyft, or whether it's, and a perfect example, Uber, Lyft is that we're going to be geofencing Uber and Lyft on drop-off on Rosemary Avenue. So what that means is that they're only going to be able to drop off and pick up at a certain location, and we're going to electronically monitor them in doing that. And so we've already had Uber agree to participate in that. So that'll be one of the first ones that we do. But beyond that, we need to effectively manage the curb in regard to what time deliveries occur, that they're not double parking, because we have that, Uber, Lyft drop-off. All those things need to be effectively managed along with good parking policies, and we think that will bring some better certainty to the situation, because right now it certainly needs improvement, because we're seeing a number of occasions, I mean, I see it personally, where people just stop in the middle of the road, and that can't be tolerated. So once we establish that policy, then I think we'll systematically go through an enforcement part of that as well. And so, thanks.
All right. Thank you. Oh, I did remember what a question I had. Armando, do we have an estimate of the numbers that were there for our Super Clematis by Night on Thursday? Do we have a rough idea?
I have not heard. I don't think we did any counts or anything, but I heard somewhere between 5,000 to 10,000. I'll try to get closer numbers than that. But
Excuse me, Raphael's got it.
Raphael?
That's exactly what I heard.
Okay. Okay, great. Okay, anything else? If not, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.